First, I want to appreciate and thank everyone that's joined in with us today. We're very, very excited to show you guys what we've been working on for like the past 8 months to a year. As we go through this, there's a Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Ask the questions there or even the chat box, and we'll get to those at the end of the webinar here. I want to go ahead and introduce our two hosts today, our panelists, we should say, Utkarsh and Fred. If each one of you guys will take a moment to explain yourself, your roles, would definitely give us a better input of where you guys are at.
Thank you, Tyler. Thanks for joining, guys. I'm Utkarsh, co-founder and CEO at SiteRecon. Started this company 4 years ago, pioneered AI measurements, AI takeoffs for the industry, built simple to use off-the-shelf mapping solution for you guys so that it helps you collect data in the field at scale, in the office at scale, and really cuts through all the loops that you have to go through to get access to the truth about the physical spaces that you operate in, that you do business in. That has been the mission of SiteRecon. And today is one of those historic moments when we unveil something really cool that we've been building here with Fred and TrueWinds Consulting. Fred.
Okay, thank you, Utkarsh. Thank you, Tyler. Yeah, my name is Fred Haskett. I'm the principal partner with TrueWinds Consulting. We're a management consulting firm that focuses entirely on the lawn, landscape, and tree care space. I started in this industry in 1974. So you can do the math and see how long I've been around. But, over the years, I've owned my own operation, a lawn care operation in my hometown, Dover, Ohio. Went on to work for a couple of large regional companies and then worked for two national companies as a senior executive, the Brickman Group and U.S. Lawns through that time. And during that period, I've, developed a lot of systems and process and expertise in these areas and have discovered that, estimating and pricing strategies and the analytics that result from that are really critical path items for folks that are on the call today to be successful. So
thanks, Fred. Great point there. If you have got a good estimating system, you can almost think about your landscaping business like playing a game of Tetris. It is more complicated than that, of course, but you can choose to place the blocks around your business in a way that the new blocks that you're placing, the new contracts that you're getting, reflect the business that you want to have in the future, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. And your estimating system is one of the ways you can make sure that this choice, what kind of margins you want, what kind of quality of service you want to deliver in the market, what kind of brand you want to build. Your estimating system is how you operationalize that choice and make sure that anyone who goes through that system actually ends up, making it a reality as you keep adding contracts to the business. Because if you think about it, the essential landscape maintenance business model is very simple. Like $1 million company operates in a very similar way to $1 billion company. It's just how many units have been added to that business. But that estimating system is really a key choice that you can make in thinking about how you want to set up that business. Fred, you have a very simple way of explaining it in 4 pieces. Can you elaborate on it?
Yeah, if you really think about it, again, whether you're $1 million business or $1 billion business, as Utkarsh said, the components and the structure is still pretty much the same. We have a sales process. We're trying to sell and capture business. We're trying to, through that sales process, capture reasonably good gross margins that cover our indirects and our overheads, resulting in a net profit. So from that process. Now, to do that in the landscape management world, there are 2 basic structures. One is your base maintenance contracts, the agreements that capture all of the recurring revenue processes of the services, mowing, trimming, pruning, mulching, spring fall cleanups, things like that. Whatever that large group of line items is, you're building a base maintenance contract, an agreement that you're then going to execute and deliver to your clients. And that is where the base profitability comes from, with gross margins that are competitive at that level to capture work. The next piece of the puzzle from a profit standpoint are what we call enhancements. They're extras or upsells, additional work that's outside of the base contract that you're selling to your existing clientele. And the word enhancements covers it in a couple different ways. One, you're enhancing your client's landscape, you're enhancing their property, but you're also enhancing your business model, because selling these enhancement projects to a client, you're able to sell it at a higher gross margin, therefore make that an area more profitable. So the combination of base contract at a competitive gross margin, at an enhanced gross margin, combined together to make a fairly and well profitable organization. So again, when you think about, it's all based on the simple building blocks. In base maintenance, when you're developing your contracts and your agreements, there are basically three fundamentals that we're tracking and we're developing to create those estimates: the labor costs, the material costs, and any subcontractor that would use. It is not that complicated at that juncture, so that we're building the pricing model because we're understanding what our costs are to be able to build that gross margin and that net margin product. And again, we have the two fundamentals: your base contract, your base agreements that you are pushing out at a competitive gross margin to capture, and then the enhancement piece, which is the icing on the cake for the profitability. And enhancements have a couple of different things that you look at. One is, the first thing we want to track is what we call penetration. When we sell $1 of contract work, if we sell 30 cents of enhancements or extras, that creates what we call a 30% penetration rate. And the ideal landscape company, from a profitability standpoint, if their penetration is between 25 to 35%, that's kind of a sweet spot. And if that work is priced and sold at a higher gross margin than the base contract, then you create a significantly profitable enterprise. But you have to correctly identify the base contract gross margins to capture the work and capture the opportunity to sell the enhancements.
Yeah, ultimately, a lot of boils down to how you do your sales, right? Like which kind of customers you capture. Is there an opportunity to sell enhancements to them or not? Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that comes to, do you know who your prototypical customer is? You know, every landscape management company in the commercial field should be identifying which segment of our portfolio is our best. You know, are we best and most profitable with, and have the best penetration with enhancements with HOAs, Class A office space, campus type things, retail shopping centers? Where do we do best at? And that's one thing we have to identify. And the very nice thing with having the platform that we're talking and sharing with you today is, from the analytics that you'll get by doing this estimating platform, you're going to be able to really go in and look at your portfolio and say, here's where we have the best enhancement penetration. Here's where we have the best performance, budgeted versus actual hours. This is the customer or the type of customer segment that we perform the best at. So now you're taking your sales teams, account managers and business developers, and you're now able to more effectively identify which is our best customer segment, and then target more of the growth in that area.
I like this. I like this, man. The way you say it's not sales, it's proposals. It's just next level.
Yeah, because again, you know, about 30 years ago, I got my first opportunity to be in a situation where I was managing multi-branch, you know, multi-state operations. And, you know, I was really struggling with, you know, how do I deal with managing salespeople in all these different locations? Because up till then, I'd managed one location. And so all of a sudden I had a problem. It's like, I don't know what I need to know. I knew what I didn't know. And then I had an opportunity to talk to a longtime sales manager with the organization. And, you know, he told me very simply, I said, how do you do it? How do you manage the sales team? He says, well, I use one fundamental metric. And he said, that's proposal activity. And then of course, I didn't even understand what he was talking about at that moment. And then he explained to me the process of that. So what you do, and again, this estimating platform is going to help you identify that, but you need three basic components. One, what is your average job size? Two, what is your closing ratio for your salespeople. You should be able to measure that. And if you can't, there's some industry averages that we can help you with, but you need to identify that. And then you need to have the third piece of the puzzle is how much do your crews or your production units create in revenue stream? So let's example, a 3-man crew. What do they produce in revenue? If you have those 3 components, then you can target a growth goal. We're going to add 2 trucks this year. You have your average job size. Now we know how many jobs we have to sell. And then with a closing ratio, we can also identify not only what our sales goal should be, but what our proposal goal should be. So if you have a 30% or a 33% closing ratio, if you're going to sell $1 million, you need to put 3 million on the street. It's simple as that. And then at the average job size, you can now calculate a sales management plan that shows how many proposals to get how many sales. You can divide that down into monthly and even weekly goals, so you can really keep your salespeople on track. Because if you have a salesperson that has a 20% closing ratio and one that has a 40% closing ratio, both of them can hit their sales goal if they're going after their proposal goals and achieving those. One's going to have to work a little harder and put a little bit more on the street, but they can both get there. And if you're managing that fundamental piece of the puzzle with those 3 metrics that I talked about, you can keep your sales goals as actual achievable targets. And I've seen it done. I've done it. And it's really simple process. Boom, you're there.
So we got sales, we got gross margins, we got the base maintenance contract, and we got the enhancements. That's how it ties in all. But Fred, it sounds simple, but must be not that simple, right?
No, it actually is fairly simple when you look at the fundamental components of it. The problem is, are we doing it correctly? There's lots of different processes out there that I've seen and I've worked with over the years. But again, you have to be thorough. You have to go out through the process and do it right. Measure the properties, really understand your production rates, and effectively get where you need to go. The problem is that takes a lot of time. Historically, it's been very real time suck and those kind of things. And what happens is we shortcut the process. We start eyeballing properties. We may map them, but we have all the measurements, but we still don't know what to do with all the measurements. We don't have those production rates in place. So we shortcut things. We look at similar properties, things of that nature. We have 2 or 3 people in our organization that we know can eyeball things pretty well. And then we set a number. Okay. But we don't really have a way to back that or analyze that number. Is it the right number? Is it the right gross margin? It's a guesstimate. And we end up having 2 things happen. We sell a job that we now have underpriced and underestimated. And now we have a low price or low margin or both combination job that is negatively affecting our profitability. The other thing is we didn't get the job because we were too high on that, because we don't understand where we need to be on a regular basis with that. And now that job, which could have had, been highly profitable, we don't have it. We missed it on that. So because we don't have the infrastructure to do all of the work necessary to get where we need to go with that. And we get in a hurry, especially in, Q3 when all the commercial properties are budgeting and all of a sudden we're in a rush. We've got all these opportunities coming in, and all of a sudden we've got to get these things out the door on the street, and we start shortcutting and we start either missing or getting a job that we wish we didn't have.
And all sorts of things happen. We've heard some stories like people would forget to look for fences on the property and they don't know can we access the area beyond that or not? So they just miss that. They would miss slopes. They would forget to factor in for leaf cover, these little things that come up in estimates where you are crossing off the T's and dotting the I's, and there's a bunch of those, Fred. There are so many of those you realize over the last 8 months. Oh my God. And for sales guys, it's not usual to be so detail oriented. Having managed sales teams myself, I found that to be generally a challenge. And it makes sense. They're emotionally charged folks. Their job is to do that selling at an emotional level, but behind it, it's like almost like an analytics process that has to go on for that sale to be successful because you still have to discover the right price.
Absolutely. Again, you've heard the story over the years, sales is a numbers game.
Yeah.
And, sales is not a numbers game. It's an emotional game. Sales, people buy from people they like. They buy from organizations that they're comfortable with. That's the emotional part of the process through that actual process of asking questions, developing the right proposal, and presenting and selling the service to them. Sales management, like we just talked about, that is a numbers game. That is a math exercise and putting things right so you can help your salespeople get where they need to go on that. But again, when we get into what all is taken to develop a full-on, well-measured, well-inventoried estimate that we know will hit the targets with all the right production rates, with those kind of things, that takes a lot of time, and we frequently don't invest the time because we don't have the time to invest.
Yeah. I remember that horror story you were sharing with me, that huge contract that you got, that was like a multi-year contract and you had to like buy it out or something at the end of the first year.
Yeah, this was when I was with a national company, and we had an opportunity to estimate or to propose work to a large real estate trust that managed a large number of apartment communities across several states and several major municipalities. And we were struggling with it because it was going to take some time to really do it right. And I was a regional manager at that time. We had one of our business developers who had done a lot of work in this arena come up with an idea that because in that industry, they had a common analysis point. They looked at properties by the door count. For example, if you have an apartment community with 150 apartments, that's 150 doors. So one of the analytics in the apartment industry is to analyze revenue and cost by door. Well, this business developer, great investigation, great research on the client type, but came up with, why don't we just price it by the door? We know typically what apartment complexes are like. We've got a lot of data sets that we can use, and we can just come up with a quick formula for the average apartment complex by the door, and then we won't spend 5 weeks in 3 different states and 7 different branches trying to put this together. And so that was the proposal, and a quick formula came out. Now, I was a regional manager at that point, and we had 3 marketplaces, 3 branches in my region that were affected by this. And I said, no, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to go out and measure everything. We're going to do it right. So we put some extra people on it, and we really pushed ourselves to get it. But
Fred,
our numbers were higher. Pardon?
I was about to say, why are you such a hard ass there?
I'm an obsessive compulsive anal retentive and always will be. But we did it the right way. Now our prices were a little higher, but the composite price across all that was much lower, and we got the work. But we also failed miserably, and I think 8 or 9 months in, we had to walk away from the contract with a buyout because most of the ones that were priced by the door some were profitable, but most were spectacularly underbid because we didn't think about that. So if you think about a 12-acre property with a bunch of 3-story buildings, has 1 footprint and 150 doors. You could have a high-rise building that has a 3-acre footprint of landscape and has 150 doors. So you can't, it was not a correct way to do it, but it sounded like a really good shortcut that would get that proposal done in time. So, you have to really think through how you're doing things to do it the right way, And then the next thing that we run into is, now we've done the estimate, maybe we've shortcutted it, maybe we've had some basic things that we think we're right on the numbers, but again, because we haven't really done it thoroughly, now we have budgeted hours that we've presented that link with the pricing that we put to it. Now we start performing the job. And now we discover we have a big variance in actual hours, right? Because we didn't price it thoroughly in that process. And now, 3 months into the process, now we're trying to figure out how to squeeze this productivity on this job to make it profitable because the gross margin's going south because it wasn't priced right to begin with. So that's a very common problem that I see all the time. And I've dealt with it all the time because we've had jobs that we didn't estimate correctly. And you go back and figure it out. And generally it's we didn't take the time or we didn't have the time to get it all done by the time the customer wanted a price in front of them on that. So now we live with this. We either figure out a way to squeeze it or we live with a low margin job for the extent of the contract, or, and this is a last resort, we have to bail from it because we're losing money on that. So with doing it the right way, right from the get-go, you have the right production hours that matches the right costs and right prices, and then you can adjust the gross margin up and down from a sales price, but you have the data set to perform the job the way you estimated it.
I found this thing come up a lot over the last 4 years. You've measured almost 1 million properties now, and people just get faster when the process becomes simpler with them. By people, I mean sales guys, business developers, account managers. The more sign-offs you need, the more people involved. And everybody sort of, thinking about it from their own angle into this thing, everybody being very subjective, having their own experiences working with landscaping like that. And then people get bogged down, process is slower, and that directly hits that key metric that you were talking about, Fred, number of proposals that go through the door.
That's right. And that's the problem because we're out there, looking at, prospecting, trying to drive up opportunities and things like that. And certain times of the year, as property managers are budgeting, tends to be the time that they're wanting to look and receive most proposals. So all of a sudden we have these spikes in proposal activity. Usually about late third quarter, early fourth quarter, there's a spike. And then you get into mid quarter one, after the holidays, there's a spike. And all of a sudden we've got all these proposals in front of us that are great opportunities. And all of a sudden now we're trying to figure out how do we get these numbers out there, and how do we get them out there, but priced correctly from a sales standpoint and a production standpoint with that. And that's when things go south on us because we're in too much of a hurry and we start just kind of throwing numbers out there because we don't have time to do it right the first time. But the companies that do it right the first time, every time, are the ones that I consider the elite, the top organizations, because they have high gross margins, high penetration rates, therefore high net profits with that. So it's worth the time to do it right. But does your system that you have in place allow you the time to do it right the first time and collect the data sets? So
60 years of experience, what would a system that does that, what does it look like?
Again, it's something that will, one, allow us to do a full inventory of the property to get the lineal footages that we need, the square footage that we need, apply those to equipment rates and production rates that we need to do that so that we know that we have the right cost basis. We understand what this job to deliver according to the client's scope and our production rates. We know what this job is going to cost us to do. So now we have a bottom line. Now we can apply the right price because now you can manipulate gross margin based on competitive situations that you're in. But if you're doing it right from the get-go, you always know the cost of doing the work and producing the work. And if you know that, you know how low you can go or how high you can go in that range. So you have a much higher success rate of selling successful work with that. And the other thing too is if you're using a system like this and you're kicking it out on a regular basis, everything's consistent. There's very little variance in the jobs from a cost or performance basis because you now have a consistent basis to establish your cost levels and your budgeted hours, and therefore then onto your pricing with that. And the more streamlined you can make this process, and that's one of the things that we're going to share with you in a little bit, is there's a way now to make this thorough investment to get this level of detail so that you can know your costs and have consistency of output with significantly less time. We've estimated that 20 to 40% less time to produce an estimate the right way every time. So now Utkarsh is going to kind of walk us through a little bit of a demo on what we're calling the SiteRecon Estimator. So Utkarsh, show us how it's done.
Yes, sir. Very excited to unveil this for you guys. This is, think of it like the best in class, best in the industry estimator available to you on a subscription inside your mapping software. Well, that just is a lot of language, but how does it work, right? So 3 pieces to it. One, how we take your estimating system and we put that inside SiteRecon. That's one. Second, how can you start ordering estimates just like you order measurements on SiteRecon? And third, when you get back the data from us, what does that look like? Why does it matter? So
what you're saying, Utkarsh, is right at the beginning of the process, they have the ability to build this out in a custom manner for their company, their labor costs, and their equipment production.
Yes, sir. We look at what types of crews you have: weedly, detail, lawn care, irrigation, flowers, however you have that set up, right? What type of crews you have, who are the people in that crew? Is it a 3-man crew, 4-man crew, very custom? And then how much are you paying them? That's the crew setup. Once that crew is set up, then we look at what these crews are doing on site. What are the services they perform? So we take the services and we map them to the crew. Now, these services are like, let's say you are doing mulch installation. So in mulch installation, you will have some production rate as you're moving through the property, and you will have some material component as well because you're installing mulch. So all of that gets fed in here. Types of mulch you have, if you are like doing spot spraying for weed removal, what type of chemicals you're using. So all of that gets fed into the system here. So we have services. Again, mowing is a big question. Everybody talks about it. What deck sizes I use, it's very custom, 100%. So that is set up right here. We got your crew, we got your services mapped to the crew, and then we set up your estimation model. Now, this is a unique concept, estimation model. Its core essence is, it's like your margins, gross margins, your overheads, and the prices at which you want to sell the jobs. Those are the 3 pieces to it, really. But what we let you do is set up different types of models. So Fred talked about these different scenarios you run into when you are doing your sales. You run into competitors, you run into high margin properties with no enhancement, or low margin maintenance work with a lot of enhancements. So you are working with these different scenarios and you want to play with your gross margin, see what the total price looks like. So we allow you to set up different pricing models in here, adjusting your margins, adjusting your overheads. And something that comes for you out of the box, you don't even have to set it up. The only thing you have to do there is just plug in your crew composite rate. What comes out of the box is a SiteRecon pricing benchmark. It is the first time in the industry that someone has unveiled a pricing benchmark on services. And a lot of credit there goes to decades of work that Fred has done in the field, looking at crews, the efficiencies they work with, and us being able to partner and put that together in a standard, a benchmark that you can use to compare what the market might be thinking about as they're pricing those services. Of course, this sits parallel to what you are doing inside the system. There is like your landscaping company estimation model, and then there's a SiteRecon pricing benchmark that has been set up inside.
Right. And again, a lot of companies just come up with one labor rate from a pricing standpoint. Yet at the same time, you have your mowing and maintenance crews are paid at one composite level, but an irrigation crew or an arbor crew or a turf and tree and shrub applicator crew, those are generally crews that are paid at higher rates. So you can customize all the composite rates of the different crews in here when you set it up as a baseline, and then that goes into every job after that.
100%. Even subcontractors, like if you want to set that up here, you can do that for subs.
And it's something we don't do because it takes too long to put all that together. So again, there's another major shortcut area that this takes away the pressure to shortcut it.
100%. And we want to set this up like a partnership. We'll just get to it in a minute. So a lot of that work that goes into setting this up is not going to be there for you. So you're set up in the system, the benchmarks are there, the models are there. You enter your property, you put in the boundaries, and you arrive at the screen where you say, okay, on this property, I want to do mowing, trimming, edging, I want to do some policing. It's on the side of a highway, I'll do some weed control, bar blowing. I don't know. I don't see any perennials there. I would want to do some spade edging, pruning, detailing, and those are the items I want to estimate. Oh, I just forgot mulch. So I just go in here, I select mulch, done. All right, get estimate. So you just order it like a pizza and it comes back to you like this with a lot of toppings on it. So it's getting to my dinner time, Fred. So this is what comes back, guys. You got all these layers. Let me show these layers to you one by one. Of course, you got your 3 moors. The standard configuration we work with is that you would need a small mower that's 21 inch, a medium mower 48 inch, and a large mower that's 60 inch. That's the standard benchmark configuration. In those deck sizes, we also look at difficulty rates. We are looking at slopes, we are looking at obstructions, we are looking at access, we are looking at distances between these sections of turf, because distances add to like time that you're not working, that adds to production rate. We are also breaking this down into finished mowing and secondary mowing, because that's a very fundamental part of just not doing the work that is not needed, because that builds up the cost of your contract. And then it's one of the checklist items that you should always think about when you're pricing properties. Are there areas that I can apply lower frequencies to? Then we get into power blowing large areas. So, you are blowing parking lots. Then you are blowing your lens. So, you would blow along hard edges. So that's all your sidewalks, string trimming area. I'll just get to a note that's very cool. Lineal, so string trimming along fences, tree ring edging, pet maintenance edging, mulch install. On mulch install, we are deducting the hedge areas, shrub areas from the mulch area so that you exactly get what needs to be mulched. We are looking at different heights of hedges in here. We are looking at really breaking on this property. It was very cool, Fred. Like we were able to see which beds are being spade edged, and you could actually tell the difference because there was so much detail we got from the street view. It was like, oh wow, like we exactly understand which ones are machine edged.
Sure.
And so we go through all that, guys, and then this goes directly into an estimation right here. So let's say all of this is turned on. You got your estimation here, and see this model here. That's the model that's been used to price this out. Now you got your weekly, detail, additional. These are the 2 setups you did. And in that, you've got mowing, broken out to difficulty, broken out to production rates. You got your edging. So, let's say you go to the site, and we highly recommend you go to the property even with this level of detail. Like, do not miss that out. Otherwise, Fred's going to share a couple of more horror stories with you, and that will motivate you to not miss out on the actual work.
Yeah, because there's a key part of this where you still have to go out and visit the site, because you have to go out and walk the property and make sure that you adjust. But the cool thing with this is you can walk out there with a tablet with the estimate that the mapping system and the estimator has created for you, and now you can adjust things. Oh, there's no way we can get a 48-inch mower in that area because it's up a set of steps. Okay, you couldn't see that from the satellite photo, but I can see it here. So now I'm going to adjust that to 21. Then you're going to walk back here and say this area this is more open. There's less obstacles than it appeared to be because of the tree canopy. I can get a 60-inch machine on here. So you can adjust it and fine tune it. That's where, when we're estimating or we're measuring or we're guesstimating, we don't have time to do that. And then also when we're looking at the skill set needed for this, we have 1 or 2 people in our operations that can do estimating pretty quickly just by eyeballing things. This is much more transferable knowledge and doesn't become tribal knowledge that disappears when someone retires or they leave, things like that. You've got a strong basis here, and everything here then is easily trainable to make those decisions from that field process. So now you're going out onto the job site that you have your base estimate for, and now you're tweaking it, you're adjusting it, you're fine tuning it. You can say, we can do better here. Oh, we need to go a little bit slower here on those things. We can do higher level of detail at the monument sign and the main entryways. Then we can take the back 40 behind the building, and then we can lower the frequencies or the detail on that because it's not as important there. So now we're really customizing the proposal for our needs and for the client needs. But again, because you already saved 20 to 40% of your time in building all this out, you have the time to do this part of the process and still have it out there to the client in a matter of a few days. So,
and you will much higher quality of output, Fred, because all the detail is in there.
Yeah, the detail is there because it's been built out by the AI estimating system, and all you're doing is taking your on-site local condition knowledge and adjusting and moving things around. It becomes a little bit of a chess game, and instead of horseshoes where it's close as enough. We're moving this to a higher detail level.
100%. So we are also sending you notes here on the map, the assumptions we made as we created this estimate. So 1 year later, when you have to get into a price increase, why this was estimated, like you were seeing in the numbers, there's just accountability here. There's just easy to refer back to why did our numbers look like, where they are. So all of these notes are delivered with the estimate so that you can validate this in the field. You can apply your own notes and your own logic to it. So that is the system, guys. And I want to very quickly point out to the time, Fred, we are 44 minutes into the session. We got about 16 minutes to go, lots to cover. Guys, you would highly recommend you stick around. We might be a few minutes late over the time, but we'll try to wrap it as soon as possible. Okay. So what's the philosophy that went into building this out? Fred, this is yours.
I mean,
this
it's
is
KYC, so cool. KYC, and that's not chicken. It's know your clients, know what they need, know what they're looking for, know the level of service that they need. That's the account manager, the business developer, knowing the client, know your cost. That's the estimator system. We build it out and custom fit it to your company, your level of compensation for your crews, your machinery, your costs, so you know what it's going to cost us to produce this job and a level of consistency across all the jobs that you're pricing. And again, the final piece of the puzzle is the intelligence you gather when you're using this system. It's know your competitors. Every time you're successful and every time you fail, if you ask a couple simple questions at that moment in time, you find out where the variances were for you and your competitors. So you're learning where the gross margins are that your competitors are pricing work at that. So if you're doing that, after action, quick conversation with your decision maker, the prospect that you're working with, and you gather that information, you're learning how to consistently tighten up everything. So downstream, 6 months later, we're up against XYZ again at this property, and we know the last 2 times we either won or lost a job to them, they were at our level in our system, their pricing was at 46% gross margin. Okay, that's where they price, because we've learned that with the wins that we've had and the losses that we've had because we asked the right questions. Now we know how important is this job to us. We're typically at 48 or 49. If this is a big enough job or highly visible in the marketplace, or gets us a foothold into a property management firm that has a large portfolio, or we know it has a lot of enhancement opportunities, we know where we need to be to get it. Okay. But we still have all our cost basis. We know how many hours it's going to take. We know how many yards of mulch, how many flats of flowers. We know all of that. We didn't just willy-nilly adjust our prices. All we did was tighten our gross margin, but our operational production levels are still the same across the board as we execute the job, but we now have a better chance of capturing the jobs we want to capture. But we also look at that job and say there's only one job for there's no portfolio. They don't spend a lot on enhancements. We don't want to go to 46 to get that job, because it's not going to add to our profitability. So you're now making intelligent decisions because you know your client, you know your costs, you know your competitors. KYC.
It's not a fear-based thing with competitors. Like people just get into this mindset, oh, we might lose it, win it, but make it an analytical conversation, and this system actually gets there. So you get more dials to fine tune, guys. Like when you get that level of detail, you get so many layers. You get these layers attached to services, services attached to production rates that have marked to difficulty levels. And then you got frequency, you are playing with margins, you're going to the property, you're asking the right questions. And this is built into the system. You are getting so many dials to play with, dials that are built logically to arrive at the right price, the price that you need to be because your model was set up like that. You end up with better margins, you end up with more confidence as you're going through the sales process, and that ultimately adds to your close rate.
Absolutely. And the reason that a lot of you aren't doing that now is because to do all this manually or even in a bunch of Excel spreadsheets takes too long. Okay, now it's at your fingertips.
And we are looking at this like a partnership. So when you're getting feedback from clients on where your competitors are pricing this at, we're going to work with you to set up those models. We're going to work with you to make sure production rates are on point. We are going to update our own production rates over time through time studies, through partnerships that we are doing with companies out there like Top Green. And ultimately, we want to have an accurate modeling of labor cost and material usage on a job. We've had this situation come so many times that people would order measurements from SiteRecon, but then someone goes to the property and they're like, yeah, it's a one-day job for 3 guys. It's like a 24-hour local crew. And then they're back calculating from that guesstimate into what the measurement should be. And then that produces the price in their estimating system. And it's like, you open that estimating system and you compare that with the numbers in SiteRecon, it's like, why don't they match up? Because the SiteRecon numbers were just used as a protection, like just to make sure that the guesstimate was not too off, like the guesstimate was not wonky. It's a waste. Like you're still going top down, you're not going bottom up. And the beauty of a system like this is just does bottom up for you, and then it doesn't matter if you have worked in landscaping for 10 years or not. Like it's easy to scale that process.
Yeah, teachable and scalable for your team because, a whole bunch of the work is done and all you're doing is fine tuning the process because the estimator has been built. You've customized your setup in the estimator. And so 80% of the work is done. And then you have to teach your team just to fine tune the process.
The pricing benchmark that you get in the system is based on production rates that came from this philosophy that properties need to be kept crisp, clean, and green. Like we are not out there polishing diamonds, right, Fred? Like this is at the end of the day, landscaping.
Yeah, these production rates came from years of development, lots of time in the field with myself and other people that were working as a team with me, stopwatching all of this information, and it's been continually validated and updated over several decades. So we know the numbers are good, they're solid, and and it's a great platform. And Utkarsh is going to tell us a little bit about where you go from there with all the possible new technology that's coming up. So this can be changed over time.
100%. So the job here is to keep the production rates at the cutting edge. So as you get your electric mowers in place, as you get your electric string trimmers, as you get your robotic mowers in place, it's our job to make sure those service items are in there, those production rates are in there. So we'll be out there doing market research, making sure the system is up to date. So you can think about what kind of company you want to have in 2, 3, 4 years. You're bidding your contract like that, and the estimating system is sort of taking care of it at the back end, that those numbers are already in there. And we are able to dip into our partnerships with manufacturers, with vendors out there, and bring you like a clean picture of what the job could look like.
Yes.
So gear up to dominate your market, guys. The idea is we want to make you the first guy who's through the door all the time with accurate, comprehensive proposals. Can't stress enough how much that matters. I think it's the number one trick to like increase your close rates, really.
Yeah, really. I mean, there's a lot of statistical analysis up there and just experience that I've had over the years where the first person in the door with a good, comprehensive, high-value proposal has the edge in the process. And if someone's in the door just as quick as you without a comprehensive, you look so much better than they do. But a lot of times you'll come back and talk to the client 2 or 3 times in the follow-ups, and they're saying, well, I'm still waiting for 2 more estimates so I can have the 3 that I have to make the decision. But I got to tell you, every time I look at yours, it's pretty impressive with that, because some of these can take weeks to put together if it's a large property, where with the SiteRecon Estimator, you're now doing this in hours and days.
Get more time in production reviews, you qualify the scope better, you're getting market prices to benchmark your quotes. Ultimately, there are no surprises when you kick off a job. You can justify price increases to customers. And we want you to scale the outcome of your business without having to increase the people you have in your team. If you have a better system, you can operate at a higher level of productivity and efficiency.
Yeah, technology affords us the ability to do more with less. And the future of successful companies is to do more with less. That's your future if you're going to scale in the 21st century.
So want to quickly get to a question that, some questions all of you guys might be thinking about. Is it accurate? Yes, it is accurate. We've been creating estimates that people are sort of looking at what's their actual number in the field when their crew is out there, and things are matching up very closely within a couple of percentage points. It is flexible. We can set up your company in here. Of course, the benchmark is in here, but all the services you do can be set up very easily in the system. Cost effective, it's going to cost you less than 50% of what it costs you right now to put together those estimates, simply on the basis of time savings that you're going to get from it. Now, the ROI is also on the top line because sales will go up, margins go up over time, profitability goes up. So all of that adds to the benefit.
Absolutely.
So quick poll question for all of you guys. I want to ask you something very, very important, which is, do you want a one-on-one demo of the SiteRecon Estimator? That poll is live right now. The idea here is, on the call, we are going to do an audit of your estimation process. We are going to look at how you have set it up right now, what efficiencies can be introduced in the system. And then we're going to put together an estimate on a property of your choice. You can choose between a recent property that you are estimating on, or like Fred said, your ideal client, or a property that you've been servicing for a very long time, or a property that you're not making a profit on, a property you lost to a competitor. You can look at the pricing benchmark there. So all of that is how you can figure out what's going wrong. And then we will calculate an ROI for you. So this whole system should make sense for you on a cost level, on a top line revenue level. So that's the objective of this one-on-one call. All right. Thanks for this. Anything you want to add to that, Fred?
No, just that, this can get, a lot of folks have talked to me over the years about, how do I do this? How do I get there? And still, how do I have the time? How do I develop or train my people to do this comprehensively? And, this is the tool. It's taking technology and all of the information that has been gathered, the organizations that I've worked for over 30 years, and combining them into something that is efficient and makes you look very quick and very nimble, but really gives you data, access to data, and access to things that you never had before to customize this. So do we have some questions, Tyler?
Yeah, we do. We have a couple questions, guys. If you guys have any other questions, drop it in the Q&A. But Gary asked, how do we recoup overhead?
By understanding what gross margin you need to have to cover your overheads in that regard. So, when we're setting that up and helping you on board and getting your cost basis, one of the tools will help you start to target what your gross margin needs to be at what billing rate needs to be set up with that. But if you look at it, if the gross margin is set at the right percentage, it automatically recovers your indirect and overhead costs and allows for profitability without the need of going through all kinds of exercises on overhead recovery for this or overhead recovery on this piece of machinery or things of that nature. That's very complicated and constantly changing. This puts you in a very simple process with that. And I got to tell you, this is the process that a lot of the big companies do. They don't jump around with all kinds of overhead recovery calculations. They know what they're looking for. They know what their overheads are. And if you set the gross margin correctly, you've recovered everything you need to recover to make a profit. The gross margin is such a key driver in this industry. And if you're not calculating it, you need to. And, and if you need some help with that, I can help you understand what that is. But that way it keeps it nice and simple and it's as a consistent part of the estimating process.
Great. Thanks, Fred. Kate asked, do you have landscape install / hardscape functionality built in as well?
I'll take that. So, Kate, we can set up service items that reflect the nature of the job that you just described. So we'll put in materials and the labor that's going to match the service that you want to do. So it can be a hardscape install. It can be enhancements that you're doing with landscaping. Yes, it is totally possible to have those set up as well. However, for now, what we are estimating as an order in the estimator when you place an order is just maintenance services. You can do your own estimates on top for installs, enhancements, and construction items.
Yeah, the same calculating tools that we've developed get to write to KYC, know your costs.
Exactly. That model, once you set up, you can have part of it as maintenance that you're ordering with us and we are doing it for you. And the other part, you can do it yourself, the construction install piece.
Great. So Jason said he's watching this as a sales team. Our management and financial don't have any cost or estimated labor metrics. How can we in sales use this?
We have calculating tools that we can help you arrive because you know how much you're paying your people. So we can come up with some of the tools that'll help you arrive at those numbers as part of the onboarding and setup. Plus, one of the things that I do every day with my clients is look at their P&Ls. So if there's still some confusion there, I can go in and sit down with you one-on-one. We can go through your P&L and I can show you where you need to be and what the gross margin targets should be for you. So we have all the tools in place and the expertise to help you get where you need to be to use this tool.
And so it becomes like a two-step process. You sort that out first. What Fred is talking about. Second, you are getting production rates off the shelf, right? And so you kick that off. And then over time, as you perform the job in the field, you get a sense of, okay, do I need to adjust these production rates or the production rates that have been put in here? Your account managers can review that, your branch managers can review that, and make sure that they're aligned to what you expect from your crew when they're out there. But the setup is coming off the shelf. You just have to tweak it a bit.
Yeah, Jason responded and said that they aren't allowed to see the P&L.
Say that again.
Jason responded back and said that they're not allowed to see the P&L in their company.
Okay. Well, then maybe that's something, again, I can help their management or leadership with that. But again, the tools are inside the system. If you understand what your labor rates are, we have the production rates, and then all you need to add is your labor rates for your crews and your material costs. We can get you there with information that you have because the production rates have been validated over time.
And so once your model is set up, your model will have information about the overheads and the margins, right? That's where your management is involved. Once that model is set up, you don't need to go back to it. So as a sales guy, you're just working with the estimations and you're just seeing gross margin at a job level. So if the management wants to keep it secure, it is possible to do that.
Great. So John asked, how does this integrate with Boss and Aspire software?
Great question. Direct integration with Boss. There's an API that goes straight into the Boss estimating system. So once your service items have been scoped out, quantified, measured, you can pull them up into Boss at the click of a button.
We have one last question. Garrett asked, can this be used in the residential setting?
Sure. Measurements are measurements. Property sizes are property sizes, mower deck sizes, and mulch production rates are mulch production rates. The pricing margins might be a little different on smaller scale jobs because travel time and stop charges are a little higher for the smaller jobs, but you're going to set that in as part of the build out of the process is what's our travel time and build in. So you're going to have a stop charge basis with travel time that's going to adjust for the size of the job, which would be a little larger for a residential job because you're doing the stop charge tends to be a little higher, but also your productivity can be factored in because you're doing more jobs per day. So all that can be factored into when we build out and do your onboarding to set it up. So absolutely. Doesn't matter, residential or commercial.
Great. Thanks, Fred.
Yeah.
So there's
Tyler.
additional questions. If anybody has any last minute questions, you can go ahead and drop them in the Q&A now. We are over on time here, guys. So we do appreciate you kind of, being patient with us. Patrick asked, is this system cost effective for smaller companies?
Yeah.
Yes,
Right,
because
you
it
want to take
allows smaller companies to become larger companies too. But yes, it's very cost effective.
And here's a secret for you. We've got more smaller companies on it than larger companies. And that's just between you and me.
Great. Perfect. I think that is all the questions we currently have.
Thank you very much, guys.
Sweet.
Look forward to talking to you all.
100%. Thank you for going to
Yeah, just to recap here, guys, everyone that got registered will be getting an email with the recording to this, as well as a booking link to meet with myself or Utkarsh to get to the next steps. But we do appreciate everyone that joined in today, and we want to thank our two panelists here and Fred and Utkarsh to kind of change the way that estimating is really being done here in the landscape industry.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you much.
Thanks, Fred.
If you like what you see here, don't forget to click on the bell icon and subscribe to the channel. We post videos every single week.